And then finally we get this shocked expression. She's actually wondering what you guys are doing behind the screen of this review, as it looks a little sus to her. Hello everybody and welcome back to another Transformers review. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the BingoToys BT-02 Windgirl, and I could definitely do with a bit of wind as it's getting a little hot in here. Now for those of you looking to add this to the collection, may I suggest Showsy's store, link in the description down below. They are currently hosting their annual 11/11 sale, and between the 25th of October leading up to the event they'll have a few various different discounts for some members to participate in, but it is really the 11th of November that you'll be able to appreciate all of the special discounts that they actually have on the site, so be sure to check out the links down in the description box below for more information. But getting back here to the BingoToys Windgirl review, hello mama, there's really no beating around the bush with this figure. It is essentially a super stylized, sexy recreation of Transformers Windblade, and I'm gonna be honest and say, I absolutely love the way this thing looks. I mean, the paint and the attention to detail is awesome, but I think there's kind of a middle ground with this figure. It's nowhere near as kind of cringeworthy as the likes of the Nice. I know some of you guys really didn't like how super stylized that figure was. This one does have similar design traits, but in all, I mean, I think they've kind of kept it to a point where it's not over the top. I love the head sculpt. I think it's probably the best transforming Windblade head sculpt we've ever seen. It looks so cool, amazing paintwork, and the eyes are just fantastic. They really do throw me back to the kind of Studio Cell Unicron that was released a few years back, in the sense that they look alive and illuminated at all times, despite there being no light piping or LED, so that's fantastic. And the details for the rest of the body are bang on. She looks fantastic. I mean, the painting and the sculpting across the board for this figure is just immaculate. We get these huge turbine kind of thruster things here at the back, which in themselves look fantastic. She does also have various different details kind of stamped throughout her, so you'll see some of these kind of engravings, which I think also look really cool. Amazing sculpt work across the board. I mean, the gauntlets look fantastic, as so do these huge thick thighs, perfectly in proportion with the rest of the figure in my opinion, and it leads us down to this super sleek, elegant high heel boot. I mean, that looks really cool. I just love the paint. I really do think the paint is one of the biggest saving graces about this design, as she just looks incredible. Now I do have a few issues with the tolerances, mainly in kind of this back region. As you guys can see, this is super loose. I'm unable to kind of get this to stay up, and this is designed to kind of carry 3 of these swords, and it's literally just impossible when I peg them in, so that's unfortunate. It's quite a shame that they didn't learn from their BingoToys Shockwave and actually put some ratchet joints in this figure, and the same can also be said for this hinge joint as well. If I actually detach it, as you guys can see, that is super loose and floppy, so it does make an amazing looking figure feel kind of cheap and just kind of fiddly to mess around with. So I do wish they definitely could have tightened up the tolerances for the turbines, but in terms of the main body, I mean, I haven't actually had any loose joints at all, so I'm not too sure what went on with these back pieces, but the head can look up and down, rotate the full 360, look left to right. These pieces can also articulate, mainly due to transformation. The shoulders can hinge out the sides. She also does have a few pieces of die cast scattered throughout her, mainly in some of the main joints. So we have it here for the shoulder, the elbow, which can bend to 90. We also do get a nice rotation at the bicep, a ball joint out of the hand. Sadly, no individual finger articulation, but that's mainly because she comes with a whole host of hands, and the fingers would have to be super tiny, so I think joints maybe would have been a little brittle. We do get a nice ball joint here for kind of the mid-torso, although it doesn't really allow much crunching forwards. It allows for a little better going backwards and side to side, but this is super tight. I mean, you can kind of hear that cringe-worthy screech, so you may want to loosen her up with some lubricant or something. We do get some hip skirts which can hinge out to the sides, and for those who own Nice, you'll know exactly how these hips work. So they do kick out to a weird angle, but we also kind of get this circular joint embedded in the thigh, which allows you to rotate that around to get a slightly further kick, and I think they work pretty nicely. We also do get a hinge joint kicking out to the side to a fantastic extent. Her butt absolutely restricts any range of motion going backwards. I mean, it's just way too big, so barely any backwards motion, and for some strange reason they've actually given her duplicate right thighs. I think this was a cost-cutting measure. It hasn't really restricted articulation or anything. It was just something I noticed, as the design is basically inversed. So where we have this kind of circular piece sticking out, the same can also be said for the back of this leg here, as you can see there. So Not sure why they decided to do that, but we do get some very nice buttery friction joints for the knees, again reinforced with some die cast, so that is fantastic. And finally for the foot, this can pivot forward, backwards, as well as rock side to side. So beautiful ankle pivot on this figure. Yeah, I really like the way she looks. She is super cool. Now as we talk about accessories, she does actually get so many interchangeable pieces. So here we have kind of a neutral faceplate, painted and sculpted very nicely, but you can also swap it out for a slightly angrier expression. And one thing I will mention is that I will actually remove the faceplate for transformation, just as the nose does have a tendency to become a little scuffed. Now as far as actually removing it goes, you simply do just take it here from the underside, pop it clean off, and that will allow us to peg on another one. So here we have a slightly more excited expression. You can see those lips are slightly moved apart, again immaculately painted as well as sculpted. And then finally we get this shocked expression. She's actually wondering what you guys are doing behind the screen of this review, as it looks a little sus to her, but very nice range of expressions. I think she comes with pretty much all of the ones I would want. And then we turn to the hands. So in addition to the pair of fisted hands, we also get these kind of love heart gestured hands. She loves you for checking out this review and of course smashing that like button. I mean, these are cool. I think they're kind of a novelty accessory, and the detail on the hands is actually really cool. I love the expression that we have here for the fingers, the way they kind of flare out. But that isn't it. We also do get a pair of slightly different gestured hands. So here we have what I can only call a waving hand. Hello guys, thanks for checking out the video. And this strange kind of grasping hand, again very nicely sculpted. I mean, these look fantastic, and it is cool to see just how many kind of expressive gesture like poses you can get with this figure. Very immaculate attention to detail. And then finally we of course get a pair of sword wielding hands, which I've left till last because I want to showcase all of the weapons that she actually comes with. But these two painted very nicely here at the back and sculpted really cool, and you can just see how loose and floppy that turbine is. Honestly, it's such a pain in the butt. The biggest issue I have with this figure, she was almost 100% perfect. But let's get down to weapons. So she does include two tiny looking daggers, and these have been painted and sculpted very nicely, mainly cast in kind of this purple energon plastic, but the paint we actually get for the handle looks cool. We also do get kind of a middle size, which are a little bigger when in comparison to the past ones, but painted and sculpted into a very similar format. And then finally we get my personal favorite pair, those being these extra large swords, and these are fantastic and truly are Windblade down to a T, completely cast in amazing purple plastic. But you can actually store all of the weapons in the turbines to create for a super cool look. So let's get stuck straight into it. I'm actually going to showcase it here on this side, which is a little less loose and floppy. So to begin with, you take the handle of the larger sword, and I believe the instructions mention it kind of sticking out here to a slight angle. We can then take this section and clasp it over the top, which looks really cool. And then next up we bring in the smallest out of the bunch, this kind of tiny little dagger. You want to make sure that this section here is risen all the way up, and basically the handle is going to slide into this hollow cavity, and these two nubs are going to slide into these two circular pegs. Now first time round it can be very fiddly to do, but as you guys can see it went in there rather seamlessly. And then finally we bring in the middle sized ones, which are just going to slide into this hollow cavity, and then this section here will come up over the top, and there we have one side with all of the actual swords sticking out of it. So repeat the same process here on the opposite side. And there we have both sides with all of the swords attached, and this looks really cool, but it is again just such a shame that I can't actually take these and raise them up, because at least on this side it is super loose and floppy. So again, super unfortunate, but I love this kind of sword burst look that we can actually get here out of all of the swords. And that pretty much wraps up accessories for Windgirl. So let's go through some comparisons. First up, of course, I had to bring in Nicey. Now I can only apologise by how much she's being blasted out of the review station due to kind of the white plastic, etc. But these are very similar in terms of kind of their design. But I just wanted to kind of bring this comparison in to say that unlike Nicey, the whole gimmick with this figure isn't that she's super stylized. I mean, I think that's kind of what this company was going for when they released her. I mean, she did have this really kind of specific design, whereas here with the Windgirl, whilst she does have certain characteristics which are kind of borrowed from, I would say, this figure, in all, I mean, she does look like an actual proper Transformer. I don't think anything has been massively over exaggerated, and again, I do think there's something for both types of collectors to enjoy here. Those that liked the kind of design aesthetic that we got from Nice, and for those that just like your average Transformer, which is based on the original character design. And here we have her alongside another fembot, that being the Masterpiece Nightbird, which is the same size as the Masterpiece RC. I would bring that one in, but considering it's white plastic again, you're not really going to be able to appreciate that comparison. So as you guys can see, Windblade is actually quite a bit bigger in terms of width and just kind of height in comparison to what would be Masterpiece RC, and in this case, Masterpiece Nightbird. Now, turning to transformation, considering we've pretty much covered everything here for robot mode, a few things I would do just to make things easier, and of course just to prevent paint chipping, etc., is to first of all remove all of the swords, as they will just get on your nerves, they'll get in the way, etc. And I like to actually remove the face piece just to prevent any paint scratching to the nose, as there is a tiny bit of clearance between kind of the nose and her butt section where it will end up in transformed mode. So first up, you're going to want to take these sections here and fold those in. You'll also want to make sure that you specifically have the pair of fisted hands actually pegged in, otherwise they won't be able to slide into their transformation cavity. And you guys are just going to have to excuse me, but we actually have to grab her bust and pull this section here forwards. Then this piece will tuck in. We can now take the neck and hinge this up. And another thing I noticed when I was actually messing around with the swords is that this bow really has a tendency to fall off pretty easily. I mean, it's not pegged in there, it is just a very loose friction joint, so I may actually go ahead and glue that after the review, but fully extend that up. And basically what that will then allow us to do is extend this double joint, kind of where these turbines are, away from the main body. We can now take her neck joint, and this is just going to fold in upon itself, just like that. We can then rotate this section here all the way around until the front is of course facing the back. And as far as the nose cone goes, you'll want to detach it from its robot mode configuration and try and straighten it out, and then relocate it and snap it there into place, something along those lines. We can then take these sections here and fold those in. These pieces too will also hinge over the top. Now, I would be specifically careful of this. You definitely don't want to chip any of the paint on the underside, so just take your time when you're actually pushing them past these pieces, and do the same here for this side. So just gently bring that section over like that. Now, these pieces for jet mode do specifically tab in, so give that there a good old squeeze. And then with these pieces, we can just angle them here to the back, but again, they're very loose and floppy, so will 9 times out of 10 actually disengage from their position. What we can now do is take this joint, extend this here so that it is completely close to the body, and then what will happen with this piece is that this section will slide down, and this will actually tab and lock there into place. So we're left with something along the lines of this. You'll then want to angle these pieces here out to the sides, take these sections here, slide these out on both sides, and then as far as the actual torso goes, line that up and just scoot these hip pads down. We can then take the elbow joints, compress these in on both sides. So give that there a good old squeeze, snap that there into place, and then now what will happen is we'll actually disengage this joint and rotate the fist around, so we're left with something like this, and then rotate the bicep, and this will actually tuck into this hollow cavity. So let's just give that there a little push inwards. So snap that into place, come here to this side, and as you guys would guess, rinse and repeat. So fold that around, snap this section in there, and then we flip up here to the back piece, which to be honest is the slightly more frustrating part of transformation. So I would recommend to take these sections and just disengage those, angle them here out to the back. You'll want to take the heels, collapse them alongside kind of the toe piece, and then do the same for this side. Bend at this joint, and we're basically going to snap her leg. So snap this kind of lower shin piece, and then what we'll do is basically rotate this here to the side and slide the foot into this hollow cavity. So slide that section in until the foot is completely tucked in there, and then basically take the knee joint and make sure that it's shifted all the way up, and then this section should come up and over and snap back there into place. This can definitely take a few attempts to get the hang of. It is the more fiddly aspect of the conversion in my opinion, and then just do the same here for this side. So bend at this knee joint, break her shin just like that, and then what we'll do is we'll angle this here to the side, bend at the other knee joint, and really and truly just feed it through that hollow cavity. Shift this knee joint all the way forwards to make sure that's really tucked in there. And then what we can do here is slide this over the top, just like that. And there we basically have the base jet mode without any of the additional accessories. Now, to be honest, I think this in itself looks pretty cool. It is just a shame that these are so loose and floppy. Now, you could have these facing the front if you wanted to, but again, they're really not going to hold their position. It isn't until you bring in the swords, which to me, this looks really awesome. So what we'll do here is the same as the bot mode. You'll want to take these and slide them through there. This will come over the top and will click into place. Do the same here for this side, so slide it through that circular piece, snap that there into place, so we're left with something along the lines of this. You'll then want to place this down for now, bring in kind of the middle-sized sword, and as you guys can see, this will be the one that has the 2 tabs on either side. We can then take the smaller one and just poke that section through the circular port, so you're left with this, and this tab here will actually slide into a slot on what was originally the side of kind of the lower part of the leg, so that we create the back fins for the jet. So do the exact same on the opposite side, and there we have Windblade in her jet mode with all of the accessories attached, and it is really here where it's completely complete. And despite her having such a kind of super stylized, sleek and elegant robot mode, and the transformation being rather simplistic, I think it's pretty amazing that the jet mode, whilst it isn't 100% awesome, does actually turn out to be half decent. I mean, it's pretty cohesive. I do like the details and all. So again, the paintwork is the massive selling point about this figure. The metallic red just pops. It looks so cool. You can see more of those details that I discussed earlier on in the review just kind of stamped throughout this figure. It looks really nice. Now, the cockpit, I believe, can actually be opened, although it is super difficult to actually get this here to stay open. So I may have to insert a clip of what the detail looks inside. It is just way more hassle than it's worth to pop that out. But there's no way for you to actually store anything in there. It's just a nice molded in detail. As you guys can see, we get those really nicely painted and sculpted turbines, which I think look fantastic. And of course, the swords kind of filling out this rear fin piece. I think that looks pretty decent. Now, surprisingly, she also does have some landing gear, so we can just deploy the front landing gear by pulling this section out, hinging this piece down, and then these pieces are actually attached onto her knee joints, and there goes one of the rear fins. I guess she's going to take a dive and crash land, but yeah, those can be deployed, and if you wanted to, you can have her actually situated on something. Or alternatively, she does include a transparent pink display base, which I'm going to be honest and say is trash. This thing is garbage. That's the main reason why I didn't show it off in bot mode, because it really doesn't help the robot mode at all, and it's got this rather strange mechanism. I mean, the instructions don't mention anything about the assembly of this, so it could be completely wrong, but basically what happens is you want it in a configuration which kind of resembles this, and that massive flight stand is going to peg into this circular section here at the top. So let's see how this goes, bearing in mind this is complete pink transparent plastic. So let's just snap that there into place, and as you guys can see, in the process of doing that, not only has the stand exploded, but it has actually snapped here at the base. So again, a crap flight stand, but it is basically supposed to just prop the jet up. And wrapping up on this review for the BingoToys BT-02 Windgirl, or as we know her as, IDW Transformers Windblade. Personally, I really like the design. I mean, I don't think it's too overdone like we saw with Nicey. I know there were certain aspects about that character which, to be honest, were just slightly too extreme, but I think with this one, it's been kept to a moderate extent. I mean, there are some regions which undeniably have been slightly oversized, but I don't think by too much, meaning that this figure, I think, will appeal to a wider demographic because it's not overdone. I do like the bot mode. Of course, it really nicely harkens back to the original IDW Windblade design, a design which I think is incredibly underused officially. I mean, she is such a cool looking transformer, and this figure is no exception. The painting and the sculpting looks immaculate, much like their BT-01, and I'd actually go as far as saying it's a little better painted when in comparison to their first release, but I do have some tolerance issues, and it's mainly got to lie in kind of those jet turbines. They're really just on friction joints, which is unfortunate, and the majority of the figure figure is just friction joints, so why those particular pieces weren't tightened up as much as the turbines is completely beyond me, and it can make for a little bit of a frustrating play experience. I mean, they are very loose and floppy, but bot mode wise, she looks cool. Accessories, I think, for the most part, are great, besides the display stand. I think it's absolute trash the way it's been kind of designed. It's just way too overcomplicated for me. I just cannot be bothered with it. I'm just going to stick to the display stand that you guys all know I like to use in these reviews. Transformation, very simplistic, but I'd say very effective. I mean, it doesn't take much time at all to get her from that super sleek and elegant bot mode into a pretty convincing cohesive jet, which is surprising considering how easy it is to transform her, and the jet mode has got some nice details. Whilst I personally don't think it's the better out of the two, I also like how the swords do integrate into the transformation to actually give it a slightly different look. So for those looking to add this to the collection, I'll be sure to pack some links down in the description box below. Be sure to sound off down in the comments to let me know what you think of both the figure and the review, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.